We appreciate all of the guests who have appeared on our show and sincerely thank them for providing you, our audience, with useful information. However, the advice our guests provide is theirs, and we encourage you to seek out a professional if you have specific questions about any topic we cover on the Crushing Debt podcast. On this week's episode of the Crushing Debt podcast, monthly passive income through tax deeds. So welcome back.
Welcome to the Crushing Debt Podcast with your host, Florida attorney Sean Yesner, where our goal is to help you get rid of the financial bullies in your life.
So welcome back to this week's episode of the Crushing Debt Podcast. My name is Sean Yesner, owner and founder of Yesner Law, and I have a guest on this week's episode. But before we get to our guest, I do want to mention our sponsor very quickly. So those of you that are longtime listeners know our sponsor is Sam Cohen of Attorneys First Insurance. He writes errors and omissions insurance or malpractice insurance, basically for attorneys and title companies in Florida and Texas. Now, he also writes for attorneys and title companies all over the country, but the two states that he's focusing on right now are Florida and Texas. If you are an attorney or title company and you want an apples to apples quote of your insurance coverage or malpractice coverage, contact Sam. If you're a supporter of the show and you know an attorney or a title company that needs to review its malpractice coverage, go ahead and refer them over to Sam. Easiest way to do that is his email, sam@attorneysfirst.com, or you can always visit his website, which is attorneysfirst.com. But I want to get to my guest on this week's episode. So my guest is an internationally recognized educator with over 15 years of experience. He is an active and expert real estate investor and has provided mentorship to thousands in the areas of creative real estate and tax lien and deed investing. Working with his partner, he created Tax Lien Alliance to instruct those interested in real estate investing on how to secure foreclosable tax liens and make the most of tax lien and deed investing. His innovative approach is designed to assist investors in targeting the right deals and properly evaluating those deals for maximum profitability and minimizing risk. In his capacity as a real estate coach and mentor for well-known real estate experts, including Robert Allen, Russ Whitney, Dolph DeRoos, Robert Kiyosaki, James Smith, Armando Montalongo, Sean Higgins, and Tony Martinez, among others, he's developed a national network of successful real estate investors and lifelong friends. Welcome to my guest, Mr. Todd Ashton. Welcome, Todd.
Hey, thanks for having me. I appreciate it.
So I also want to, right at the beginning, give everybody your contact information, and I'll do it a couple times, and I'll put it in the notes. But your number's 801-358-1496. You can also visit taxlienalliance.com. You can email Todd at toddashton@gmail.com. Also check out his Instagram, his LinkedIn, and his YouTube pages. And again, I'll probably mention that again, and I'll put it in the notes. So if you didn't catch it this time around, you'll hear it again, or you can go back and check the notes for the show. So monthly,
that's a lot.
Before we get to the show, we got a couple of things to celebrate here. So as we record this, now not on the release date, but as of the date of recording, happy birthday.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Woke up this morning and I was so excited to be on your show. I was getting ready for it. And my dad called to take, my mom and dad wanted to take me to breakfast, and, they're still alive. They're still kicking, and that's great. I was very honored. And then I was like, what's the big occasion? And it was my birthday. So they had to remind me it was my birthday. And then when I was talking to you told me a little bit about your family. So go ahead and tell me what you told me.
So June and December are the two craziest months in my house. So you share a birthday with my younger son. His birthday is today as well. And
that's
so
cool.
We're going out to dinner with him tonight for his birthday. His birthday party is tomorrow, but yesterday was my father's birthday. Monday is my wife's birthday. And then the following, I think the day that this episode comes out will be my wife's grandmother's birthday. So we've got 4 family birthdays. We got Father's Day. I think this is the first time in like 5 or 6 years that Father's Day hasn't fallen on the day of a family member's birthday.
Oh my goodness. That's awesome. Yeah,
we're gonna take him out. He turned 7, so we're gonna take him out for dinner tonight, and we've got his birthday party tomorrow. And so that's as soon as we're done recording, I got to hit the road and go get all the party supply, all the bottles of water, all the juice boxes, all the stuff for the birthday party tomorrow. So
Well, just as a side note, and this isn't a woe is me, but my dear wife, she passed away from breast cancer 2 years ago. This was my sweetheart and love of my life.
Wow.
But that's the reason I show you that is remember to keep the memories. Remember the memories. These are good times. These are times to cherish. You feel like you're running around. It's crazy, but those are the times you look back on, reflect on, and you realize that it's a good life. So.
Yeah, I'm sorry to hear about your wife. And I agree. I mean, it was fun waking up this morning and going to Facebook and looking in 7 years of the day he was born and when he turned 1 and when he turned.
Oh yeah, all the memories. All the memories.
All that stuff was really fun to see today in Facebook. But we're not. Although it's great stuff. I do want to get into the aspect of real estate investing and what you do. So I guess my first question, we talk about tax deeds and I think tax deeds have kind of a stigma because I remember, when I was in college, when I was in law school, when I was in high school, I think even some of the late night infomercials of, make bazillions of dollars in real estate. You can buy this $1 million property for $100. And I didn't know it at the time, but that was all tax deed investing. So, basically, what is it? How did you get started in it? What should people know that are interested in tax deed investing other than not to follow the late night infomercial gurus?
Yeah, that would be the first thing I would say. They're in the business to market. They're in the business. They're a seminar business. And I worked for one of the largest seminar companies on the planet, focused on tax liens and deeds. You can go find them on the net today. But they're a seminar company. They're good at pitching, but they hire people like you and I to actually nail it down. Because we know our stuff, they hire people that actually know it to do it. How I got started is back in the early 2000s, late 90s. I was sitting on a pile of cash I had made in high tech. I was a salesman for Computer Associates, if you know that name, out of Long Island, New York. But back in the day, it was funny because I was selling what today sells for software as a service. But back then, it was tying databases together and putting all that information on one screen with graphs and charts, and it was called portal technology. And we were selling that. I was selling that like hotcakes. But I knew I wanted to do something in real estate. That everybody has that itch in the back of their head that they want to make more money, and they know that real estate is a viable vehicle. And I was watching a late night infomercial. It was No Money Down, Robert Allen. And I was like, I want to go do that. I want to do that. And I was sitting on the fence deciding if I want to do it or not. And that's right when 9/11 hit. I walked in the office and saw him hitting the towers. And I went, I'm going to go do that now. So I jumped out. And that's when I started my journey. The first 3 years were crazy. It was hell. I almost didn't make it because I just jumped. I burned my bridges, burned the boats, and jumped. That's not a good idea. If you're going to do it, get a seasoned professional who knows what they're doing, that who can walk you through the landmines. So I learned the school of hard knocks very quickly. I became a seminar junkie. I got I still have shrink wrap stuff down in my basement that I never opened because I blew past it. My knowledge, went past it and I didn't need it. But I spent a lot of money on seminars to acquire the information. But luckily I found a mentor and started actually getting on the path, as I say, getting traction, because that's important. You got to make money. And I started making money and I started figuring out the game. I started my own company. Eventually, I got to the point where I was actually, as a mentor and coach, I was coaching for a company called NRI back in the day. They were the largest national real estate company back before the crash. We had 40 coaches that I was coaching. I was coaching the coaches, and they each had 30 to 40 students a week in their schedule. And all the questions would bubble up to me. So I was coaching the coaches at the time, kind of keeping everybody on point. Anyway, I eventually, after my company ended up folding because we had a business where we were buying 66 homes. I'll just tell you what we did. It was an unsustainable model. It was back before the bubble burst. We bought 66 homes in Utah. We had over $32 million in debt. So even though we were a $30-something million company, it was all debt. And then we were leasing those to people who had bad credit, taking non-refundable downs and getting those people into the homes using all of the lax lending provisions and straw buyer laws and all that kind of stuff. And then we were mining the equity out of those homes, doing cash out refis, mining the equity out and buying more homes. And we actually were going down to Florida to buy homes in Florida at the time. And there were whole communities down there that looked like movie sets with nobody on them. They looked like zombie movie sets because there'd be like one family in these whole communities. And it was all before the bubble burst. That's when I left. I'd actually brought two partners in and I said, you know what? I see the writing on the wall. I want out. I took a golden parachute before the crash. They turfed it and I survived. During that time, there were people that lost their lives. They lost their jobs. They lost their wives. They lost a lot. I hung on to it all, got through it. And then I realized I knew real estate was a viable vehicle. I just wanted to do something that it was easy. It didn't involve banks or loans. It very accessible to anybody. It wouldn't require any money to get out of pocket to get involved. And it was repeatable and replicatable and doable. That was my criteria. And again, didn't involve banks. And I stumbled onto tax liens and deeds, and that just ticked off all the boxes. Right. And then I just took off. I again, because of my experience, I quickly became a coach and mentor of it. I've surpassed where I was before the crash, put it that way.
Yeah. And I remember before the crash, there was a couple of towers in Tampa that are the same way that you mentioned. Like there was, it was a tower in, I think either Tampa or St. Pete that could hold, however many units, 50 units, 100 units, whatever it was. And there was one family living in the entire tower because people they either couldn't afford to buy it, didn't want to buy it, wasn't
overbuilt. Things got overbuilt. A lot of stuff got overbuilt.
All that other stuff. But I want to follow up on something I think you said sort of at the beginning. What mistakes did you make that other people can avoid if they're getting into this business? Do you remember some of the things that you would tell people?
If I could dial back to when I jumped in at the very beginning, those first 3 years, I would have, and I'm not pandering to me. I'm not saying come to me. I'm saying get a mentor, get a coach, get somebody who knows what they're doing. And if his name is Lucky and he has one leg and he's trying to take you to the minefield, don't go with Lucky, The seminar company I talked about, I call them Lucky. That's their name. They literally, the reason I parted with them is because they have a 95% fail rate. And I was like, I can't be associated with that.
Right.
My people have a 95% success rate. If they do what I tell them, it'll happen. Here's the crazy thing though. Now everyone thinks when they read up on tax liens and deeds, they're reading the playbook from 10 years ago, 20 years ago. It's been around for 200 years. They're reading old playbooks. Now, because I was talking to a guy the other day, he says, yeah, well, this is going to take me 6-8 months to make some money. And I said, are you kidding me? I can get you in the cash in 6 to 8 weeks. I can get you making money and flipping wholesale contracts in a matter of weeks. If you understand it, I can give you the tools and the websites and the databases and everything you need to start making $15,000, $20,000 or more a month right now. And that kind of blows my mind.
So without giving away the farm, without giving away the secret sauce, how do you do that? How do you start making money as quickly as you do?
It's all about control. That's number one. It's all about, this is about, if you control the property, you can do whatever you want with it, right?
Right.
So I used to teach a class back in Scottsdale, Arizona about creative acquisitions. And I went inch deep and a mile wide. And I talked about everything, bank foreclosures, tax liens and deeds. You can make money in billboards. You can make money in storage units. You can make money in any way you can make money. I was talking about it. And just a side note, I was doing that for 3 days. And there was a guy that he became one of the foremost bank foreclosure experts in Utah shortly after that time. He was short sales, doing short sales like crazy with the banks. And he was literally fleecing them. And I asked him a few years later, I said, man, how did you become the expert of this? And he looked at me like dumbfounded. His jaw was wide open. He said, from you, Todd. And I went, what? You were never a student of mine. And he says, yeah, but remember when you were down in in Scottsdale, Arizona. I sat on the front seat and for 3 days, and I took copious notes about short sales and bank foreclosures. And I was that one asking you all the questions and taking all the notes. And then after that, for weeks, I could call you at any time. You were very accessible, and you just answered all my questions. I put some deals together and never looked back. I was like, well, that's how I operate. That's what I do. So not to give the secret sauce away, but it's about control. When you get the tax lien or the tax deed, you have rights, just like a wholesaler has rights, just like an agent has rights to that property. And then you can either hold it or flip it. And I know a guy in Alabama right now who's holding 256 rental units that are bringing in over $150,000 a month of rental income, guaranteed rents, and he doesn't own them. He rents that. Do you understand what I'm saying? He controls them. Are you reading through between the lines?
I am. Now I do. This is where I've got to put the attorney hat on and insert this little plug here, which is the state law, real estate law varies state to state. So wherever you are listening, you also want to hook up with a real estate attorney that understands.
You do. That's why we're talking.
Exactly. So for example, if you're doing tax liens, if you're buying foreclosure properties, if you're doing that kind of stuff in Florida and you're buying it from the property tax collector, you're buying it on the courthouse steps, so to speak, although everything's now electronic and a digital auction. But if you're doing that kind of stuff in Florida, I think you're generally okay. If you're approaching people in Florida that are in foreclosure or on the verge of foreclosure, there are certain state laws that we need to talk about where you have to give certain disclosures and certain, other time periods and whatnot. But yeah, I mean, I would say if you're listening to the show and this is something you're interested in doing, one of the other people you absolutely have to have on your team is an attorney to make sure you don't violate any specific state law that you don't know about, because ignorance is no excuse. But I did want to talk about Alabama for a little bit. Number one, because it's where I went to law school. For those who don't know, I was in law school. I am a Florida native, born and raised I was born here in Tampa, raised in Miami. Those of you who have listened for any length of time know that I went to Florida State undergrad. But then for 3 years of my life, I spent in Birmingham, Alabama. In Birmingham, Alabama, Cumberland School of Law, which is part of Samford, not Stanford, but Samford. SAMFORD, Samford University,
that's awesome.
Birmingham, Alabama. But yeah, that's where I graduated from law school. And as soon as law school was over, I came back to Florida and started practicing. But Alabama always has a soft spot because I lived there for a bunch of years. So, what
are you in Tampa now?
I'm in Tampa now. Yeah.
So the two epicenters for what I do is Birmingham, Alabama, and Tampa, Florida. That's crazy because that's the two epicenters for this, and it's unlimited. The opportunities are crazy, unlimited. But that's the two places that I do my bit. Now you can do this. You can do this all over the United States. When I was with TLA taxing line, USTLA, I taught people that wanted to go up to Washington State. They wanted to do it in California. They wanted to do it all over the place. You can do that, but it's like saying if you want to go salmon fishing, where do you go salmon fishing? You go up to Alaska, right?
Right.
So you got to go where it's hopping, where it's crazy fishing holes. I know where the fishing holes are. I've been doing this a long time from the 100,000 foot level. So I've been talking to students for years all over the United States. I know where to go. I know what to do. Does that make sense?
Yeah. Yeah. So let's talk a little bit about why tax properties and why tax deeds. So why do you like them so much?
Because they're so freaking accessible. If you're sitting on your couch going, that sounds crazy good and I want to do that, that sounds fun, but I don't have any money, come talk to me. Oh my goodness, there's so many ways to do this. It's unreal. The guy that has the 256 units and he made $100,000 flipping this past month, just flipping properties. So he made over $250,000 this month. He started out with no money 8 years ago, doing exactly what I'm telling you to do. He started out with no money. He says this is the most accessible way to do it. I agree with him. If you can leverage, it's just like the stock market. If you can leverage like options, get in for a low amount and rake in a high amount of money, and do it legally, that's my game. That's what I want to do. So if that makes sense, did I answer your question?
I think so. I mean, the reason that I know the investors I work with here in Florida on tax deeds, the reason they like them so much is twofold. I mean, number one, tax deeds, unpaid property taxes are even first superior in line to first mortgages. So the tax liens wipe out literally everybody: first mortgages, second mortgages, associations, homeowner condo associations, municipal liens, code enforcement liens. I mean,
well, people don't realize that. People don't understand.
Yeah, so they're the top dog. And then the way that the tax liens work, at least here in Florida, so you bid on the interest rate. So when someone doesn't pay their taxes, you bid on the interest rate for that tax certificate. So you'll say, well, I'll take that, $4,000 of unpaid taxes at, I think it starts at like 18%.
18% goes down from there. They bid down, right?
I'll bid that 4,000 at 16%. Someone says I'll bid it at 14 and 12, and it typically settles somewhere in the range of, I don't know, 7-8% to about 10-12%, give or take. And
I bid down zero every time. Really? I want the property. I zero. I don't care about that. I'm on the other end of your guys. Your guys are very conservative. They have a lot of money, and they just want a blended rate of maybe 10 to 14% a month annually on their money.
Right.
I want the property. I want the property because, again, I have that control. Then I can get either the monthly rents out of it, or I can go hire someone like you to clean it up, take it over the bow, take care of everything, and get outright ownership, get a warranty deed, and then I can do whatever the freak I want with it. Does that make sense?
It does. Although I think the reason that people here in Florida want some kind of interest rate is it takes then 2 years from that point for it to become a tax deed sale. So here we are.
What if I could tell you I have ways, and as a lawyer, when I get you offline, your light bulbs are going to go on. I have ways to circumvent all that.
That would be interesting, because that would be different than my understanding of the way that the property tax laws work. But hey, if we can do it, let's go for it.
We can circumvent it. It's all about control.
Well, so again,
so I'll just give you a hint, and maybe you can figure this out with your brain. If you're in a lot of trouble with your tax liens, and you maybe even abandoned the property, and you're like, you're not going back, it's in your rearview mirror, and I do a little bit of skip tracing, and I call you up and I talk to you,
right?
And I say, I can take care of that hairball, and you say, great, take it. How much do you? And I say, well, I'll give you $1,000 for it. Go talk to my lawyer.
Right.
He runs down and gives me a quit claim for $1,000. What'd I just do?
Yeah, you took control of the property.
Hello.
Yeah.
Ding, 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 ding.
Now, you may not have wiped out any of those superior liens yet.
You have to still do some of the other things. Make sure you don't get into a hairball you can't control, or you don't know what you're getting into.
Right.
But let me give you another thing. What if I could find hundreds of properties in Florida, which I have, that are abandoned, that don't have any mortgages on them?
Yeah, then sky's the limit. Yeah, no,
okay. Say that again. What did you say? The sky's the limit.
Sky's the limit.
That's my game in Florida right now.
If there's no other liens on them, then you're first in line with no one behind you. Then I get it. That's the perfect example of the way to do it quickly without necessarily.
Let's be clear here. Not every of the thousands and thousands and tens of thousands that are out there. My game is only a very small percentage of that.
Right.
But if I'm flipping 100 of those a year, and I'm making 10 to 20,000 on each flip, I'm playing a pretty fun game. Yeah.
No, that makes complete sense to me.
Oh my goodness, I have a lawyer saying that. I need to get that in writing.
Well, I guess we are recording, but
so you know what? It's funny. Go ahead and tell them your background and tell them why we hooked up, because you're kind of shy about your background. You telling me that you actually have a title background before you got the law background, and for me, you're the perfect storm, because you're investor friendly. You're investor savvy, you know the law, you only operate within the law, but you understand how to navigate the law. And most lawyers I talk to don't have any of those qualities, sorry to say.
Yeah. Unfortunately, some of us have a bad rap. But yeah, like I said, I when I graduated law school, I moved back to Miami and started working for a firm that did residential and commercial closings. And so that's where I got my background in title. We were doing residential and commercial closings for buyers, sellers, lenders, didn't matter. And so I got 3 years of tremendous education in title. And then after 3 years, so this would have been in late 2001, was when I moved up to Clearwater and took the job at the foreclosure mill, as we would now call it today. That's where I learned foreclosures. That's where I learned, more title, litigation, appeals, all that kind of stuff is where I learned that. I did that for 3 years. I got really good at foreclosing and taking people's houses away. And then in 2004, the owner of the law firm where I worked said, I don't want to do this anymore. I'm shutting it down. And so 2004 is when I officially switched sides and represented people in foreclosure, which, like you said, I got an introduction to the investor community, got an introduction into land trusts, tax deeds, LLCs, and
that's my world. That's my world. Everything you just said. And the thing is, too, I want to make clear, I am not in any way what you would call a vulture. I'm 57 today. I live with my cat. I have grandkids. I love family. I love that you're all about family. I am not a vulture. I do not take away houses from people that don't want their houses taken away from them. I'll do everything I can to support that vision, that dream. Mine is I have the rich is in a niche, and I have a very clear-cut lane and criteria. So I can avoid all the hiccups. I can avoid all the challenges. I can avoid all the heartache, and I can get right to the heart of the matter and make this happen and line up these deals all day long.
Yeah.
Like hotcakes. Now, let me take it a step further. This is where it's going to blow your brain. Most people, they think they got to buy these properties. They got to have money to buy these properties to control them before they can sell them, right?
Right.
Well, for the last 10 years, I've been working on relationships with, and I won't get into it now, we can talk about it later, but getting relationships on the secondary market with large wells and institutions who have bazillions of these liens that they're sitting on that they already own. That's the key. They've already paid for them. Now I have the right to go in there, market those, poach them, cherry pick them, find them and cherry pick them and poach them and market them. As soon as the cash buyer comes to the table and says, I want that, I have all the dominoes set up, clear back to the buyer, and I just get paid out at
closing
escrow, out of the title company. So I don't even pay for those properties. I just have the knowledge of how to make that transaction work. Does that make sense?
Yeah. No, you're basically wholesaling.
I'm wholesaling properties that are already owned by other people.
Right. Which makes a lot of sense. And like I was going to piggyback on something you said is that I do like representing investors. I do represent a lot of investors. I do have a lot as clients, but I want to do it, again, the right way. And so if I see an investor client going sideways, I'm going to tell them, wait,
exactly.
that. And at the same time, I've actually filed suit against a handful of investors that I thought were doing it wrrong.
Exactly. And you should. I'm a mother hen. I want to do it by the book. I want to do it right. Little side note, when I was raising, I had 4 funds that I was raising millions of dollars in before the crash. And I went to seminars and took my partners with me at the time in the Bay Area, how to raise money legally. And we got an SEC lawyer to help us do that. We went to the SEC in Utah 4 times with our PPM, our private placement memorandum, in order to raise money you know what I'm talking about, right?
Yeah, I do.
4 times. The guy there, an old guy there, an old codger, he's probably not even alive today. He was an old guy. He knew his stuff. He'd been with them for like 20 years. The first time he wrote it, he redlined everything. We went back again after our lawyer rewrote it. He redlined maybe 3/4 of it. Finally, the 4th time, he redlined nothing. And they gave it back to us. And he said, that's the most well-written PPM I've ever seen. And I laughed and I said, yeah, because you wrote it.
Yeah.
And you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And after that, it was airtight. And so when everything crashed, and I'm not bragging about this, but when everything crashed and people lost millions of dollars, there was no blowback on me because I had done it legally and by the book. And they knew what they were getting into. Does that make sense?
It does. Now, I know about that area of law, but it's not really an area that I practice in. But I do have a really good buddy of mine here in Florida And I know there's another attorney that I have connections to out in Atlanta, Georgia, that can do a lot, so people looking to raise money, raise capital, do things that way. I do have attorneys that are familiar with the SEC laws that I can refer to.
Go to you. That's awesome. That they should go through you. Keep it safe. That's the whole thing. But also scaling. Let's talk about scaling real quick. I had a student, her first deal she did it in 4 months in Florida. She flipped the home that had come out of escrow, out of probate. She got it for $18,500 a deed. In 4 months, she cleaned up the title, resold it with another realtor down in Lake County, Florida, because she was in Orange County. By the time all the dust settled, I gave her the $18,500 on a short-term loan to do it. Actually, I didn't give it to her. I got it for her through my network. So let's just clear that up. But I got her the money, and she flipped that thing and made over $178,000, almost $180,000 at the sale. When all the dust settled, she pocketed $136,000 in 4 months with no money out of pocket.
Wow.
And then she came back to me 2 years later, and she said, "Todd, I have a problem." And I saw her name on the phone. I knew who she was, and I said, she didn't say, "This is Kathy." I said, "Kathy, you're the poster child for this. What do you mean you have a problem?" And she said, "Well, I've been doing this for 2 years now. I'm $1 million liquid. I have $1 million in the bank, and I don't know what to do. I don't know what to do next."
That's okay. $1 million in the bank. I could figure out what to do. You buy more houses.
I know, exactly. So I told her, I said, "Don't do all these other crazy things. Don't follow any other gurus. Just do exactly what you're doing. Just ramp up your plan, scale your plan." And so I have a guy in Switzerland who does it for 30 people, and they all go through him. They pay him to be the fund manager. He set up the fund, and they get 10% back on their money.
Yeah.
He's making 1,000 to 2,000% on their money.
Yeah, you could. That's a good idea. You could buy houses. You could take that money and loan it out as a hard money lender. You could buy the last couple of episodes of the podcast were all about Bitcoin and altcoin. I've got some more of those episodes coming up, but you could take a piece of that and invest it there.
That's where I'm putting my money. That's exactly. I'm diversifying too. I'm always evolving and diversifying and finding ways to grow my money.
Right.
So that's why I love your podcast. I want to go back and listen to everything, man. I want to get really dialed in with you, because that's exactly what I'm about. I'm about wealth creation and wealth preservation and doing it legally.
It's funny. It's sort of off topic for a minute. And those of you listening, I'll give you a little bit of background into the podcast world. But it's funny. I look at my stats from time to time. I like to see how the show's doing, and every once in a while, I'll see like this hundreds and hundreds, like 500-600 download spikes in a day. And when I go back and look at what caused that, it's people. We're in this environment where people just binge. They binge Netflix. They binge music, they binge podcasts, they binge. So I'll go back and I'll see, like, I have 3 people that just go back and listen to my entire library, and that spikes it up to 500, 600, 700 downloads in a day, which is actually kind of fun, kind of cool to
put a catchy title on this so I can ride that wave with you. That'd be fun.
Well, that's what I'm thinking. I introduced the show, monthly passive income through tax deeds, and so I know that people like getting monthly passive income.
Let me give you how that can happen in Alabama, and you can nod your head if you understand what I'm saying.
Sure.
We go to these areas that you would call affordable or economically depressed, or there's lots of words you can call them, but basically we go to these neighborhoods in Birmingham where we can get homes that are nice homes. They're brick and mortar homes for like $70,000. Yes or no?
Yeah.
Okay. And we're getting back taxes for anywhere from $2,000 to $5,000. Understand me?
Yes.
Okay. So when we get the deed, again, we can go through a lawyer. I've got a good lawyer in Alabama. We can clear it up, or we can, now that we have that, we can just start renting it out. So if we hold it, we can rent it till the cows come home, like my buddy Hyder that has 256 of those. If we want to flip them, there's ways to do that and make quick cash. So what I do is I get my students, if they come on, I get them to do a flip, hold. So be consistently making $15,000, $20,000, $30,000 a month, and then get one of these properties and hold it and rent it out for $800, $850 a month cash flow, guaranteed rent, Section 8. And so you only need 20 of those. If you have 20 properties in Alabama, I've done the math over and over, You have 20 properties in Alabama. It'll be kicking off just over $14,000 a month passive income, whether you get out of bed or not, whether you have COVID or not, whether you have anything you're dealing with in your life, it's going to be kicking off passive income, mailbox money. And those 20 properties are doing my model. You can acquire that with no money out of pocket, literally hardly any money out of pocket, except maybe for your first one or two to $3,000, $4,000. You can start doing that and acquire that within the first year or two, and you can be out of the rat race. And who can live on $14,000 a month? Raise your hand.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? You can be out of the rat race in 1 to 2 years. Shake your head. Do you think that's possible?
I would love $14,000 a month. That would be tremendous. And especially
you can do anything you want. You can sit and podcast all day. You can sit and talk. That's why I like to just sit and talk to people all day, because I can do this.
And again, the concept of mailbox money, the concept of passive income, $14,000 a month is clearly enough for someone to live on. But this is also something that you can do in addition to whatever you're doing for your job now. So, if you make, $4,000 a month would be $48,000 a year, but $4,000 a month plus you said 14,000 of passive income. Now you're at $18,000 a month. Gosh, I mean, $20,000 a month would be $240 a year. So you're talking.
And then you can acquire all the property you want. That's how you start in real estate. I just gave you the plan of how you can get from where I was to where I am today.
Well, and what I would say is take the first couple of months and just blow out all your debt as well.
Exactly. I live no debt. I live with no debt. My car is sitting in my driveway, in my garage. I hardly drive it, but I don't owe a dime on it. My house will be paid off this year. So I will be out of debt and live in as my buddy says, the laptop lifestyle.
Right.
I literally have a buddy. I could tell you my background in military intelligence and Arabic, and I could tell you colorful stories about General Schwarzkopf back in the day. We could go off rails, but I have a buddy in Algeria who has offered me to have a villa to come stay in. And I live in Utah. It's cold here. So I'm thinking I'll be a snowbird half the year in Algeria in my villa that he just let me live in. And then half the time I'll be home and I'll Airbnb this out when I'm not here. And then I'll just live the laptop lifestyle. I'll just do this with a laptop and a phone and an internet connection.
Well, and we are definitely going to keep in touch, but I can tell you right now, I've got a friend of mine who's a travel agent who's looking into packages for me and my wife and kids to head out to Utah, probably in February of 2022.
Come out. Yep, we'll have a good time. Come out to Park City. I'm sure you want to go to Park City.
Park City, where we're targeting. I've been water skiing. I grew up in Florida. I've been water skiing. I've never been snow skiing, and the only time I've ever seen snow fall and stick to the ground was my first year in law school. Other than that, I've never really been.
Wow.
My blood's too thin. I can't stand it.
I've literally been on a freeway where it was the snow was powder, thank goodness, so I could move through it. But it was it was as high as the top of the car going over the hood. And I was going 40 miles an hour down the thing snow plowing with my car. I mean, through the snow.
I remember in law school in Birmingham having the time the weatherman would come on and say, if you don't know how to drive on ice, stay home. And I did, because I would have no idea.
Yeah, shut everybody down. That's insane. Well, we're going to have fun. I had a buddy that came from Europe. I think he was Georgia, and I met him in the military way back when we were at Defense Language Institute, Monterey, California, learning Arabic back when I was just a young buck. And he came out. We took a military flight to Utah, drove down the night to my parents' house. We live up in the mountains in Alpine, Utah. And he woke up, came upstairs, walked out the back door with a cup of coffee, and he almost dropped his cup of coffee because he was looking straight up at the top of the mountain with snow on it. And he was just like in another world. He transported into another world. He couldn't believe it.
Yeah, we're excited about it. Because I mean, I've only seen snow a couple of times. My wife grew up in Indiana, so she grew up around snow. But our boys are both Florida natives, and so they've never seen snow before. So we're kind of excited.
Exciting. That's fun. Again, I said, hold on to those memories. That's why we're here, buddy. Yeah. Family, friends, and memories. That's the only thing we can hold on to.
So I want to give your contact information out again real quick. So again, your number 801-358-1496. or taxlienalliance.com, or toddashton@gmail.com, and Ashton, ASHTON, toddashton@gmail.com, or look
and two D's.
Sorry?
And two D's and Todd,
TODD. TODD, Ashton, ASHTON@gmail.com. And then again, Instagram, LinkedIn, YouTube, anything that we kind of intended this episode to be sort of the 50,000 foot overview. And I know you can get into the details with your students. I can consult with somebody that has questions about, the details in Florida, but anything that we missed, anything that you want to add?
Yeah, real quick. 4 things I look for in a student. Number 1, you have passion. If you don't have passion for real estate and you'd rather be a Walmart greeter, do that. You know what I mean? Have passion. Right. Number 2, make sure you have a little time. This is not a get rich quick scheme. Make sure you have 6, 8, 10 hours or more that you don't want to watch Netflix, that you want to make money, right? A week. Number 3, you got to be teachable. You got to be malleable. And if you can see, I'm holding up my hand. I had a tumor removed from my neck in 2012, my spinal column, and it affected my C5. So I can't screw in a light bulb or tie my shoes, but I can do this all day. So anybody can do it. You know what I mean? Right. Anybody can do it. And again, if you're, number 3, you got to be malleable. You got to be teachable. You have to, if I tell you to do it, do it. And number 4, you got to have the price to engage me, which is literally less than half the price of anybody out there. Go look at the major companies. I'll have a lifetime engagement with you for a very, very nominal fee, because you do one deal and you're back in the black. And I can teach you how to do this 2 or 3, 10 deals. I have a student, I just got a text the other day, 10 flips this month, over $100,000 a month in flips. You can be doing that out of the get-go. I had a guy that, like I said, was talking to me saying, it's going to take 6 months to make money. And I said, no, it's going to take you about 6 weeks to make money. You just got to get dialed in with the right information.
Exactly.
So it's very accessible. It's very doable. And if you don't have money, I can teach you a lot of ways to come to get access to me. And we'll talk about that. So everybody engage me. Just pick up the phone, dial or text me and say you heard the podcast, and let's engage.
Very nice. So again, I gave your contact information a couple times. I'll put it again in the notes, so anybody who has questions about contacting you can do it that way. Thank you very much, Todd. I appreciate you being a guest on this week's show.
I appreciate it. And enjoy your family. Enjoy your birthday. It's going to be crazy the next couple of weeks. Well, let's talk. Call me back when you get back in the saddle, and let's go have some fun. Yeah,
sure. And what Todd's talking about. So as you are listening, if you are listening to this episode on the day of its release, I will be in Isla Mirada in the Keys fishing with my wife and kids and best man and his wife and kids. And so I'm taking a few days off on the day this episode comes out, and the Friday and Saturday and Sunday, taking some days off, going down to the Keys and getting some fishing done, and probably, hopefully bringing back some stuff to smoke on the green egg when I get back too. So we will see about that, but that'll do it for, I think, this week's episode. Like I like to say at the end of every episode, I hope that you have more money at the end of the month rather than more month at the end of the money. That'll do it for this week's episode. Again, thank you, Todd, for being on the show, and we will talk. Yep, and we will talk to you in next week's episode of the Crushing Debt Podcast.
If you have questions that you think would make a great topic for a future episode, please email Sean or connect with us on social media. Sean Yesner and Yesner Law, PL, are Florida licensed attorneys. The information contained in this week's episode is not a substitute for legal advice. Your situation may differ, especially if you are located somewhere other than the state of Florida. If you have questions, please contact our office or contact a local attorney. Thank you for listening to this week's episode of the Crushing Debt Podcast.